Man, it's impressive how some legendary games from years ago still manage to outshine many recent releases. And the best part is that several of them received enhanced versions on the PS5, proving just how impactful these titles were, and still are. So I've put together 15 games considered old school that you absolutely need to play right now on your PS5. God of War 3 Remastered. I'll never forget the first time I booted this up. Even today, that opening scale is it's insane, man. You're literally climbing up Gaia's back while she scales Mount Olympus, and you're fighting Poseidon while the entire screen is covered in water and lightning. It makes most modern boss fights feel tiny. Kratos in this game is at his absolute peak of I don't care about anything but revenge. And honestly, sometimes you just need that raw, unhinged energy. The PS5 version runs at a silky smooth 60 FPS, and let me tell you, it makes those combat combos feel like a rhythmic dance of death. The Blades of Exile feel so heavy and responsive. One thing I've always loved, and it's kind of a lost art now, is the fixed camera angles. It makes every frame look like a freaking painting. I'll admit, some of the platforming bits can be a bit janky, and the story is basically just Kratos yelling Zeus for 10 hours, but the sheer spectacle is unmatched. If you want to feel like a literal god of destruction without the sad dad emotions of the newer games, this is your fix. It's pure distilled adrenaline. Demon Souls. Okay, so this is the game that started the whole Souls-like craze, and playing the remake on PS5 is a spiritual experience. Bluepoint Games did something magical here. They kept the original clunky but fair DNA, but made it look like a $200 million movie. I remember the first time I walked into the Nexus. The lighting, the echoes, the atmosphere, it's thick, man. You can practically feel the dampness on the walls of the Bulletarian Palace. It's a game that respects your intelligence by beating you into the dirt until you learn its rules. The haptic feedback on the DualSense controller is the real game changer for me. You can actually feel the thud of your shield blocking a blow and the crunch of a riposte. It's visceral. The bosses like the Storm King are absolute jaw-droppers on a 4K TV. Now, fair warning, it's unforgiving. The world tendency system is still a bit confusing and can really mess up your run if you aren't careful. But that's the charm. It's a dark, lonely, and beautiful challenge. If you haven't faced the Flame Lurker and felt your heart pounding in your throat, you aren't using your PS5 to its full potential yet. The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition. Look, we've all played Skyrim, we've all bought it 6 times, but playing the Special Edition on PS5 with that 60 FPS patch, it's a different beast entirely. It feels like the game it was always meant to be. I recently started a new playthrough, intending to be a mage, but obviously ending up as a stealth archer again, and I was shocked by how much I still care about this world. Walking into Whiterun as Seconda starts playing on the soundtrack, it still gives me chills. The loading times on the PS5 SSD are basically non-existent, which is a blessing because back on the older consoles, I could go make a sandwich while waiting to enter a house. Now you're just in. The freedom is still the best in the industry. You can just ignore the dragons and go become a master thief or a legendary blacksmith. Yeah, the combat is still a bit floaty and the NPCs still walk into walls sometimes, but that's the Bethesda charm we've grown to love. It's the ultimate comfort food game. It's a world where you can lose 200 hours and still feel like you've only scratched the surface. The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Complete Edition. This is the game that ruined other open worlds for me. Seriously, playing the next-gen update on PS5 is the definitive way to live Geralt's life. The ray tracing mode makes the forests of Velden look hauntingly real, but I usually stick to the 60 FPS performance mode because the combat feels so much more fluid. I remember wandering into a tiny village thinking I'd just do a quick monster contract, and 3 hours later I was caught in a deep, tragic story about family and betrayal. The writing here is just, it's on another level. The complete edition comes with both DLCs, and Blood and Wine is basically a whole new game. Toussaint is so vibrant and colorful, it'll make your eyes pop. I personally love the alchemy and the prep work. Brewing the right oil for your blade before a big fight makes you feel like a professional. I'll admit the inventory management can be a bit of a headache, and Roach, the horse, still has a mind of her own, but these are small prices to pay. It's a mature, gritty, and incredibly human epic. If you haven't played through the Bloody Baron questline on your PS5, you are missing out on the best storytelling in gaming history.
Wait, how many is that now?
Look, I've played a lot of games, but The Last of Us Part 1 on PS5 is something else. Even if you played the original back in the day, this remake is the definitive way to experience Joel and Ellie's journey. The facial animations now are so detailed that you can see the micro expressions of grief and fear. It makes those quiet moments between them hit 10 times harder. I remember just walking through the overgrown streets of Pittsburgh, and the way the light filters through the trees on the PS5 is just breathtaking. The gameplay has that weight that Naughty Dog is famous for. Every brick you throw and every shiv you craft feels like a desperate struggle for survival. I personally love the haptic feedback when you're drawing the bowstring. You can actually feel the tension. It's not a fun game in the traditional sense. It's brutal, it's stressful, and it's emotionally draining, but it's a masterpiece. The AI is much smarter now too, which makes the stealth encounters feel like a high-stakes game of cat and mouse. If you haven't sat through that prologue and felt your heart break in 4K, you haven't lived the full PS5 experience. It's mandatory gaming, period.
Keep looking.
Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection is, if The Last of Us is a punch to the gut, Uncharted is the ultimate high-speed adrenaline rush. This collection gives you a Thief's End and the Lost Legacy, and man, they look absolutely stunning with the PS5 boost. I remember the first time I played the Madagascar chase scene in 60 FPS, my jaw was on the floor. It's pure, unadulterated blockbuster cinema where you're the lead actor. Nathan Drake is just so damn likable because he's a mess. He's constantly falling off things and making jokes while his world is literally exploding. The 3D audio on a PS5 really shines here. You can hear the gravel crunching under the Jeep's tires and the bullets whizzing past your ears from specific directions. I spent way too much time in the photo mode just looking at the detail on the ancient pirate ruins. One thing I've always appreciated about this series is that it knows when to slow down and let you just be with the characters. The chemistry between Nate and his brother Sam is just lightning in a bottle. It's a globe-trotting adventure that reminds you why you fell in love with games in the first place, for the sheer, incredible joy of the journey. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Okay, let's talk about a legend. Metal Gear Solid Delta is a remake of what many consider the best MGS ever made, and seeing it rebuilt in Unreal Engine 5 on the PS5 is a dream come true. You're Naked Snake, dropped into a Soviet jungle during the Cold War, and the survival mechanics are still some of the deepest in the genre. I love that you actually have to manage your camouflage, hunt for food, and perform surgery on your own wounds. It makes you feel like a true operative behind enemy lines. The jungle in this remake is so dense and alive. You're crawling through tall grass, hearing the insects buzzing around you, while trying to sneak past guards who are actually smart enough to follow your footprints in the mud. The boss fights.
Man, the fight against the End is still one of the most legendary sniper duels in history. It's a game about loyalty, duty, and the tragic cost of being a hero. It's quirky, it's got that classic Hideo Kojima weirdness, and the story will absolutely wreck you by the time the credits roll. If you want to see where the tactical espionage genre reached its peak, this is it. BioShock: The Collection. Man, those 3 words still give me chills. BioShock: The Collection brings the entire trilogy to your PS5, and let me tell you, the underwater city of Rapture has never looked more haunting. The Art Deco architecture, the flickering neon signs, and the sound of the ocean pressing in on the glass. It's an atmosphere you can practically taste. This isn't just a shooter, it's a philosophical dive into what happens when a perfect society falls apart. The gameplay loop of combining plasmids, superpowers, with guns is still so creative. I love setting a trap with a cyclone of fire, and then shocking enemies as they fly through the air. And the Big Daddies? They are still some of the most iconic and terrifying enemies in gaming history. The collection also includes BioShock Infinite, which takes you from the bottom of the sea to a city in the clouds, and that game's story is a total mindbender. I'll admit, the shooting in the first game can feel a bit clunky compared to modern FPS titles, but the world building and the storytelling are so far ahead of their time that you won't even care. It's a 10 out of 10 masterpiece that every gamer needs to experience at least once. Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Dude, if you haven't lived the life of Commander Shepard yet, I'm actually jealous that you get to experience this for the first time. The Legendary Edition is an insane package, 3 massive RPGs in one. The PS5 handles this beautifully with 4K visuals and faster loading, which is a lifesaver because back in the day, those elevator rides were legendary for being long. But the real hook here is the crew. I spent more time talking to Garrus and Tali on the Normandy than I did actually shooting aliens. These characters aren't just NPCs, they become your actual friends. The combat in the first game got a much needed overhaul, making it feel way more snappy, while Mass Effect 2 and 3 still feel like top-tier third-person shooters. What I love most is that your choices actually matter. A decision you make in the first 10 hours of Game 1 can come back to haunt you 50 hours later in Game 3. It's a space opera that respects your intelligence and your heart. I'll admit the Mako driving is still a bit of a meme, but the emotional payoff of the suicide mission in the second game is quite possibly the peak of gaming history. It's a masterpiece of choice and consequence. Resident Evil 4 Remake on PS5 is a masterclass. I remember the original being a bit more action movie, but this remake brings back that dark, oppressive horror vibe while keeping the combat incredibly tight. The way Leon moves, the parrying mechanic with the knife, it's so satisfying. When a Ganado swings a chainsaw at you and you parry it at the last second, man, that's pure adrenaline. The DualSense features here are killer. You feel the trigger tension of every shotgun blast. The atmosphere of the village and the castle is just thick. It's disgusting, it's beautiful, and it's terrifying. One thing I love is that it doesn't just copy the original, it expands on it, making characters like Lewis and Ada feel way more fleshed out. The Mercenaries mode is a total blast if you just want to turn your brain off and slay. It's a polished, gory, and pulse-pounding ride that proves why Leon S. Kennedy is the GOAT of survival horror. If you haven't faced the Chainsaw Man in 4K yet, you're missing out.
Hello? Is someone there?
Tomb Raider Definitive Edition. Before we had the survival horror Lara, we had this reboot. And Tomb Raider Definitive Edition is where it all started. On PS5, the lighting and the character models still hold up incredibly well.
This game was a huge shift for Lara Croft. It turned her from a superhero into a survivor. I remember the first time I had to hunt for food or cauterize a wound. It felt so much more grounded and personal. The island of Yamatai is a character in itself, dangerous, mysterious, and absolutely haunting. The Metroidvania style of exploration is what really hooks me. Getting a new tool like the climbing axe and realizing you can finally reach that hidden cave you saw 3 hours ago is such a rewarding loop. The combat is gritty too. The bow and arrow feel amazing to use, and the stealth encounters are genuinely tense. I'll be honest, the side characters are a little one note, but Lara's transformation into the Tomb Raider is so well written that you're glued to the screen. It's a lean, mean 10-hour adventure that reminds you why Lara is a gaming icon.
Finally, we have the game that taught us all how to get good. Dark Souls Remastered on PS5 is the smoothest this game has ever run. Having that locked 60 FPS makes a world of difference when you're trying to time a parry against a Black Knight. I'll never forget the first time I stepped into Anor Londo. Seeing that sun-drenched city after crawling through the filth of Blighttown is a feeling of relief you just can't find in other games. It's a game of interconnected levels that is quite literally a work of art. It's hard, sure, but it's fair. It's a game of observation and patience. Every death is a lesson. I love how the story isn't shoved in your face. You have to read item descriptions and look at the environment to figure out what happened to this dying world. The boss fights like Ornstein and Smog are legendary for a reason. They are tests of everything you've learned. It can be frustrating, and the Bed of Chaos fight is still a bit of a nightmare, but the feeling of finally conquering a boss after 20 tries, that's a drug. It's the definitive challenge game that every gamer needs to conquer at least once.
I gotcha.
Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade. Man, talking about Final Fantasy VII Remake on PS5 gives me actual chills. I remember the original on the PS1, but seeing Midgar rebuilt like this, it's a dream come true. The Intergrade version on PS5 is just stunning. The lighting, the 60 FPS fluidity, and the way the textures actually pop now. No more blurry doors, thank God. It's a perfect mix of nostalgia and modern genius. Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, they feel like real people now, and the chemistry between them is the heart of the whole experience. The combat system is quite possibly my favorite in any modern RPG. It blends real-time action with that classic ATB tactical feel so perfectly. I spent way too much time just experimenting with different materia builds and watching the screen explode in a shower of sparks and neon during the boss fights. And let's talk about that soundtrack. Hearing those classic themes rearranged with a full orchestra is a spiritual experience. I'll admit, some of the filler quests in the slums can drag a bit, and the ending, well, it's a bit of a mind-bender that'll have you arguing on forums for weeks. But man, the journey is incredible. It's a love letter to the fans that manages to stand on its own as a masterpiece. Shadow of the Colossus. If there's one game that qualifies as art, it's Shadow of the Colossus. The PS5 runs the Bluepoint remake with such grace that it feels like a moving painting. There are only 16 enemies in this entire game, the Colossi, and each one is a massive walking puzzle. I'll never forget the feeling of riding aggro across the Forbidden Lands, the wind howling, and then seeing a giant stone creature rise from the earth. It's lonely, it's quiet, and it's deeply melancholic. You aren't just killing monsters, you're doing something that feels heavy and perhaps even wrong. The sense of scale here is still the best in the business, climbing up the fur of a flying beast while you're hundreds of feet in the air, gripping the R2 button for dear life as it tries to shake you off. My heart was pounding. The The remake adds so much detail to the crumbling ruins and the way the grass sways, but it keeps that minimalist soul that made the original a classic. It's a short game, maybe 6 or 8 hours, but every single minute stays with you. It's a poetic, tragic, and absolutely beautiful experience that proves you don't need a world full of NPCs and fetch quests to tell a legendary story. Finally, we're ending with a game that became a literal meme for being too powerful for computers to handle, Crysis. But now, playing Crysis Remastered on a PS5, it's finally the experience it was meant to be. This is the ultimate predator simulator. You're dropped onto a tropical island with a nanosuit that lets you be invisible, super strong, or super fast. I love the freedom. I spent literal hours just sneaking into bases, throwing a Humvee at a patrol of soldiers, and then disappearing back into the jungle. It's pure chaotic fun. The ray tracing mode on PS5 is a total flex. Seeing the reflections in the water and the way the light filters through the palm trees is just gorgeous. It's a sandbox in the truest sense. The game gives you a goal and a bunch of powers and just says, have a blast. I'll be real, the story is pretty standard aliens and soldiers stuff, and the final act gets a bit messy compared to the open-ended beginning, but the gameplay loop is just too good to ignore. It's a reminder of a time when shooters were all about pushing boundaries and giving the player total control. If you want to see if your PS5 can really run it, this is the one to test. And there you have it, guys. 15 legendary old school games that aren't just playable on PS5, they're practically reborn on it. These are the experiences that shaped us as gamers, and seeing them with this level of polish is just a gift. Whether you're diving into the ocean in BioShock or riding across the plains in Shadow of the Colossus, these are mandatory plays for anyone with a controller in their hand. But I want to hear from you. Which of these legends is your absolute favorite? Or is there an old school classic I missed that you're still playing on your PS5 every single day? Drop a comment below and let's get a discussion going. I love hearing your personal stories with these games.